Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, avid Chris Gets Truther, my brother Mike.
And explain to me again what my main manifesto is here. My main,
That Chris Getz is the greatest baseball mind of the 21st century, and that he will lead the White Sox back to glory.
yeah. I mean, just took a series from the boys. That's
Yeah.
not easy.
So
But yeah, Chris
that
Getz.
grit should be an advanced stat unto itself.
Yeah,
That is
just
another tenet of that philosophy.
a crime that he was left out of the Hall of Fame as a player, and
Right.
now he just doesn't get the appreciation. He's ahead of his time. He's not
He'll certainly
appreciated
get
in his
there
own
as a
time.
front office person. I think
Yeah.
that's going to happen. But yeah, so we'll see. We'll see on that one. On this week's episode, we're going to review the action from last week, including that White Sox series that just ended. We're going to dig into some big picture questions related to who's getting playing time and the people making the big decisions. So JJ, Matt Quatrero, those kind of folks. And then we're going to preview this week's games because the Royals have a nice homestand coming up. Everybody gets their first chance to see Jac Caglianone in Kauffman Stadium. But first, we want to remind you to subscribe to the Royals Weekly Substack. A lot of interesting stuff coming out on that every single week. We put out a very interesting midweek episode this week. Mike put out his Mike's Dropped episode. All you got to do, $5 a month, gets you access to 2 extra episodes, at least one piece of writing, sometimes multiple pieces of writing in a week. It's really worth a ton of great value there for all that extra analysis and insight. I can't recommend it enough. I listened to the Mike Drops episode the other day when I was driving my partner to the airport. It was great, and so I had a lot of fun doing that. I love listening to the stuff I have no hand in producing. And that's the only thing I have no hand in producing. And so,
Yeah.
you're welcome. What's fun for that's
Single-handedly produced by me, which means
which means the audio quality is not great,
and the content is filthy,
is mediocre at best. But it's a lot of fun for those of you who are into that sort of thing. So yeah, make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're also rating and reviewing us. We haven't gotten an Apple Podcast review in a while. We would love another Apple Podcast review. Go in there, give us your best review, or comment on our YouTube channel. That's a great thing to do too. We had a very robust conversation in the YouTube comments this week. Make sure you're giving us those 5-star ratings, those thumbs up, all the things the kids love, because they do push us up the algorithm and help spread the audience a little further and a little wider. That sounded needlessly sexual.
I was going to say it too.
We'll start the review of last week with roster news, as we typically do. There was quite a bit of it, but a lot of it was relievers moving back and forth. The Royals are sort of scrambling for pitching as guys are coming off the IL and some are going on the IL and all this sort of stuff. We got some good news to start the week, or earlier in the week, and that is Cole Reagan's return from the injured list. A very important part of the Royals rotation. Mike, what are your thoughts on getting Reagans back and how he looked in his first start coming back?
Well, he looked a little shaky. He looked real shaky. Let's just put it that way. In that first outing, the command was not good, especially the changeup command. He was leaving some of them changeups right in the heart of the plate, and they didn't even take advantage of all of them. And I think he still gave up 5 earned runs in 3 innings, which I'm going to get into it in a second. But the velocity was also down, which is a little sketchy. He only made 1 rehab start, and it wasn't great. And then they chose to put him back in there. Lugo was the same way, and he was slightly better. I don't think he had any rehab starts, did he? Maybe he had 1.
He did not.
But he was shaky in his first outing back. Did a little bit better in the second one. He wasn't great. He wasn't vintage Seth Lugo, but did a little bit better over 5 innings in this last one. Maybe Reagans takes a step forward in the next one, but it was not the smashing success you wanted it to be coming back. He wasn't the dominant Cole Reagans that we've seen.
No, and that's what's interesting, and that's one of my only concerns when it comes to Cole Reagans for an issue like this, is that he's not like Seth Lugo, who, if he's not great, can kind of have a middle ground or sort of put in a shift and give you like 6 innings or 5 innings and 3
Walker
earned
did
runs.
it the other day. He went 6 for 3.
Yeah, or 5 for 3, which isn't great, but isn't terrible kind of outing. Reagans, it seems like there's a real thin line, and if he's across that line, he's dominant and great, and if he's not across that line, he's awful, right? Like that seems to be what he is. That's like, there are some guys like that, and sometimes it's tied to something like your pitches work really, really well if they're going this hard, but if you fall below that, you're getting crushed, right? There are some guys who are like that, and Reagans doesn't have the type of command that a Lugo or a Waka has, or the pitchability that they have, or sometimes the varied arsenals that they have. And as a result, it gets a little tougher to sort of just pitch your way around a lineup when you don't have your best stuff, or pitch your way around the lineup when your velocity's down a little bit. We've seen Reagans get hit hard in the past, and it wasn't just like, well, at least he only gave up 3/5. It was like he gave up 7/4. It always ends up being that sort of thing with Reagans. He doesn't have that middle ground. Now, luckily in the past, he's been over the line into great way more often than he has been terrible. Like you'd see like 3 or 4 really bad outings a season last year, but other than that, he was great. This year, it seems like a little bit more of a struggle, and you got to wonder, is that tied to the workload from last year? Is that tied to the fact that, maybe the arm is just not as fresh as it has been in years past? I think the Royals are probably asking themselves some of those questions, and I think they have to be considering how much of a workload do we want Reagans to take on. Right now, they're rocking a 6-man rotation. I wouldn't be shocked if part of that is because they want Reagans to get a little bit more rest, as well as Lugo and Bubic and guys like that as well.
Yeah, that's really been. I was thinking about that as I was filling out the outline today. Was this 6-man rotation thing may last a while because all of those guys are coming off super high innings from last year, and yeah, that kind of, if it's working, if every guy's doing what they need to do in that 6-man rotation, doesn't hurt.
Right. And I guess I initially was of the mind that they should move Lorenzen to the bullpen to let him supplement that bullpen and stuff. But if they can get through the next month or so using a 6-man rotation because they have so many off days, that might ultimately save Reagans' arm a little bit or help him, get back
if
to 100%.
you can do that for a long stretch, that's going to knock the innings count down.
It will. It will knock the innings count down just a little bit. That's essentially maybe 2 or 3 starts you save for each starter, or 1 or 2 or something like that. And so that's an extra, 12 innings they don't pitch this year. And that ultimately adds up to maybe a little bit of a difference. The Royals also did a lot of reliever maneuverings, and I want to bring up one of them because Jonathan Bolin, who had pitched pretty well in the major leagues so far this season, had an absolute meltdown of an outing on, what was it? What night was that, Mike?
It was the same night as that was Friday night.
Friday night.
But that was because they kind of had to stick
against
with
the
him
White
for a
Sox.
while.
Yeah, they had to stick with him for. Well, they didn't have to. I have a take on that actually. But anyway, right afterwards, he was demoted to AAA, and Trevor Richards was brought up. Mike, what are your thoughts on losing Bolin down to AAA and having Trevor Richards come up to pitch for the Royals, which he has for the last 2 games?
Yeah, and he's just, if I remember, I just saw right before we came on, he's been outrighted and cleared waivers and made it
already
back to Omaha. So right, Trevor Richards, bye. He was worse than Jonathan Bolin. He was terrible in both outings and both days he was here. Happy his dream came true. He got I don't know if does he have major league time before this? I have no idea.
Pretty sure he does. Yeah,
okay. No idea. Good for him. Got some major league time. But that's not. Bolin was doing well in spots. I don't think Bolin's been so good where you're like, oh, we got to get him back here immediately or it's make or break this bullpen. That's more of a Lucas Erceg situation. But, I expect Bolin to be back up as soon as he's rested again because I think he's part of that top, however many, 9, 10 guys, what do you want to call it? Somewhere in there that move in and out of the bullpen outside of your best guys, your Estevez's and Ercegs, and they're not ever going to get rid of John Schreiber either. So outside of that group, you've got basically, there's like a cutoff of who's really got the stuff to be in Major League Baseball and has the ability. I don't know if Trevor Richards gets over that line, but Jonathan Bolin does, in my opinion.
I think he does too. And he's got middle reliever written all over him, I think, at this point. And while the Royals may be starting to, or in my opinion, should be starting to trust a guy like Steven Cruz with some of those high leverage. He has looked so good since he's all season, really. And since I think they should be willing to trust him with those high leverage innings, especially while Erceg is out. But they seemed forced to give Bolin those high leverage innings because they're so injured and depleted in the bullpen right now, coming off that Cardinals series where they had the doubleheader. And because of that, Bolin ended up pitching in the 8th of a 2-2 game, and he had a meltdown, and it was really bad. And, in my opinion, Cuetrero
not helped by the team in any way.
Not helped by the team. Defensive mistakes and things like that, also very bad. In my opinion, Cuetrero should have pulled him at least 3 or 4 batters before he did. Because, I see what Cuetrero was trying to do. He was like, I basically have 2 pitchers left in my bullpen. I have Jonathan Bolin and I have Taylor Clark. And he was like, I'd like to get through this inning with Bolin and maybe use Clark next inning, but not have to use somebody who is already burnt out from the last couple of games. Well, guess what? You ended up using both Bolin and Clark that inning anyway, because you were, trying to push things too far, right? Like, and you ended up losing the game. And so that bothered me a little bit, but that's a really tough decision to make as a manager. And so Bolin, he'll be back. I virtually guarantee that he's going to pitch more relief innings for the Royals.
And I didn't see what the move was or why they sent him down and who came up. I didn't see any of that, so he might be back already.
Who?
Trevor Richards. He went down. I just saw that he was waived, but I didn't see who took his spot.
I don't know. Let's see if we can find out real quick. You might be spreading misinformation. I don't see anything.
I could be. I thought I saw something. Maybe I didn't.
We'll see. We'll wait till that comes down the pike. We're not gonna have an emergency episode for the Trevor
Richards being basically sent back down to
right
AAA.
On the field this week. It was a real mixed bag for the Royals. They went 3-3. That brings their overall record to 34-32. That's fourth in the AL Central. They took 2 of 3 from the Cardinals, and it was nice to see. They looked like they had been reborn in the glory of Jac Caglianone's magic offense-inspiring powers, which apparently he has. They scored 22 runs in that 3-game Cardinal series. Then they went to Chicago, crapped their pants, and lost the series to the White Sox. And when I say crap their pants, I don't mean out of fear. I mean out of neglect, maybe. I don't know exactly how to put it. They did manage to salvage Game 3 today, though, so that's nice. Mike, what do you feel, or how did you feel about what you saw on the field this week?
I feel like I got kicked in the biscuits, I was flying so high after that Cardinal series because for one of the first times this year, we've seen a series where the starting rotation did not win that series. Mm-mm. The offense and the bullpen won that series. Now, that obviously created problems that lasted throughout the week, but it was so nice to see the offense do something. And it was Jac Caglianone's debut, and it was all this fun stuff. And the Royals, took a series from a good team. No way. When I did the Mike's Drop episode, I sound like a fool now because I'm going, there's no way this team loses this series.
Well, what's interesting is as I'm listening to that, I'm like, he is talking way too much crap on a White Sox team that actually has a lot of young talent. And I tried to tell you this previously. I tried to be like, the White Sox do have young talent, and you're just discarding them because they've been terrible recently. But they do have young talent. They have more young talent coming, and this team is not as bad as it was last year. They have guys who I would readily take on the Royals roster.
Yeah, the one they have, Shane Smith, they didn't even throw.
No, I would also take Miguel Vargas. I would also take
Miguel
Kyle
Vargas
Teal.
Is a solid player. Kyle Teal just came up. He's been 3 games.
I know, but he's good.
He's a good prospect. Andrew Vaughn's gone.
He's not any good. I would take Meadroff.
And I'm not buying him. I think that's going to go away. Okay. Benintendi is like leading their offensive thing. No.
I wanted the Royals to sign
Luis Robert is doing absolutely nothing.
Mike Tuchman, I know, but I wanted the Royals to sign Mike Tuchman.
No. He's a league average player.
Maybe if he's a league average player. How come he ain't playing league average?
I get that too. Okay. But no, I don't. You can't sit there and go, oh, you should be happy that the thing I understand is it's Major League Baseball. Teams that aren't as good can beat teams that are better in a 3-game series. I understand that. But you're flying high off that Cardinals series. Give me something, Royals. You won a 4-gamer to open up May when you were probably playing worse. And now you come in here and just drop those. And it wasn't because the offense struggled. I wouldn't say that. In those first 2 games, the offense didn't score enough runs, but they had enough hits.
Well, yeah, that's the story of the Royals the last 2 months.
They just can't get guys across, so it becomes frustrating. And then when you watch what happened in the 8th inning on Friday night, that sets a tone for the rest of the series.
Sure.
Bobby Witt Jr. dropping a ball at second, just dropping it. Okay, that happens, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a great throw either.
Jeez, yeah, that's true.
That too. Yeah, so my sort of thing was that, it's not great. It's not great. And you're right. Baseball is fluky and weird, and bad teams beat good teams all the time. The Rockies just swept a series half a week ago. It happens sometimes. But this White Sox team is actually better than the team that they faced earlier in the year, even, right? And then add on to that the fact that the Royals played poorly, right? And there's no doubt about that. Like the Royals still should have won this series. They're still the better team, but I am going to take a little bit of solace in the fact that we saw some good signs offensively on this road trip. We saw them hit the ball in St. Louis. We saw Jac Caglianone's debut. We saw them put up 7 runs today in the final game of that White Sox series, started by former Marc protege Mike Vassell.
Oh yeah, I forgot you knew Vassell back in the day.
Yeah, and so there's some silver linings there. I think that people are probably going to look back at and say, okay, well, yeah, rough to lose a series to the White Sox, but pretty decent to get our offense looking more like it will probably look as it moves forward. Mike, we've mentioned that Jac Caglianone debut. What are your initial impressions of seeing him on the field?
Kind of saw some of the things. Well, let me put it this way: it's kind of bifurcated, I guess you would say, into like, okay, I'm seeing some of the negatives that I kind of feared we would see. Like, I'm seeing him swing at the first pitch way too often, just over swinging all the time. The guy is not very patient. He's super aggressive. The approach is not maybe ready for Major League Baseball. But I'm a kind of a numbers guy. And so the numbers say he's hitting the shit out of the baseball. Okay. They're just getting caught a lot. And so today we saw him go 4 for 4. Some of that didn't happen. Now I'm still waiting to see the home run production. Can that start up? Can he get to a place where he's maybe just a little bit more patient? So some of these things turn, if it's one at bat a game where he's having a better plate appearance, you're going, okay, that's giving him that one opportunity to hit one out every single time. And so that's going to be huge production. It doesn't have to be a great, he's not going to become Derek Jeter, Lou Gehrig, Ichiro eye at the plate. Okay. But
Ichiro had a terrible eye at the plate.
I guess he swung a lot. He had a good eye. He swung a lot. But he's not going to have any sort of like all-star level approach. So can he just make it marginally better? Because marginally better for him, then the outcomes go through the roof.
Through the roof.
But here's the other side, the other positive on that, on the bifurcated side thing, negative and positive. I've liked what I've seen in right field from him.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. You can still tell there's some instinct issues, but he played a ball off the wall really well, I think, today or yesterday.
I actually noted that. It was yesterday. I think I noted that myself as well. Like, that was a real smart play to, like, understand that the ball was going to go off the wall and he had no chance to get it. So to play the carom rather than going after the ball in the air.
Yeah. And then he had a somewhat of a liner out there to right, I think in the first game, Friday night, and made a really good play on that. Had to take like a really good route to get there. And so those are little things I'm seeing there that I'm really liking the positive. I would say what would have been the absolute best outcome? He came up and showed the best plate appearances he's had all year, but that wasn't likely. That could really be like the only thing I could really take is if I'd seen some really noticeable carryover from those plate appearances in the minors to Major League Baseball. Say, okay, yes, the patience is a little bit better. I'd be more happy, but I'm pretty happy with it so far.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it too. It's pretty much exactly as advertised. He is too aggressive, and that over-aggression is giving those who claimed it was too early to bring him up some meat to chew on, I think. Yes, that was Mike. And Mike, at the very least, that crowd, it looks like both crowds will be right because he will be a very productive major league hitter, probably well above average at the very least, but also too aggressive and also not reaching his potential because of that aggression unless he changes it in some way. And so that's going to cause problems eventually, or at least that's going to keep him from reaching his potential. But the raw tools are carrying him. I mean, you can't put the ball in play that hard, that much, and not have a high batting average and not have a high slugging percentage. And if you have those things, well, guess what? You're a good hitter pretty much. And so, he'll be fine. Will he reach his potential? Not if he doesn't improve the approach to the plate. But he will definitely help this team. And I want to throw out some numbers to help support some of the stuff we're talking about here. I ran these numbers earlier and wrote about them in the Substack. Coming into today, he was averaging 2.95 pitches per plate appearance.
Oh, that's low.
Very bad, right? By contrast, Nick Lofton is averaging just over 3.5 pitches per plate appearance, which is still not great, but not terrible. And you got to remember, no pitcher is afraid of Nick Lofton, and so none of them are like, "Oh, I got to really avoid this." They know he wants to swing. They know that he has very little power, and so they're like, they throw him strikes all the time, right? Uh, but then I looked at really good hitters. I thought of like, well, Aaron Judge has a good approach, and then Juan Soto is sort of knowing as having the best approach. Aaron Judge sees just over 3.9 pitches per plate appearance, and Juan Soto sees about 4.3 pitches per plate appearance. So you get a sense there of like how far Jack has to go in the patience department. Now, if he made it 50% of the way towards where Lofton is, let's say he got to 3.3 pitches per plate appearance, that would go a long way to helping that power production because now he's seeing more pitches and more of those could be mistakes. More of those could be ones where the pitcher has to come in the heart of the plate, right? Where he's batting in the lineup won't help because right now a pitcher can walk him and he's going to face Nick Lofton, Drew Waters, Mark Canha, those guys. Once he moves into that 3-hole or something like that, then it'll be a little bit more punishing to try and like pitch around him. Because you're seeing the lefty specialists that come in against him, they're just throwing sliders way outside the strike zone on pitch one, right? Way outside the strike zone continually, not like a little outside the strike zone. They're 8 to 12 inches outside the strike zone, hoping that he'll chase that stuff. Sometimes he does, and that's bad.
Yeah. And if you're looking for a little hopium on that, his minor league numbers were 3.7, 3.8 pitchers per plate appearance. And so we have seen, and especially this year, it started out even higher than that. So as he adjusts, I think you might see that number go up. And I think he's just one of those guys who does take a little bit of time to make those adjustments, but he can make those adjustments. Some guys never do.
Yeah, that's important. Mike, in a week where, the offense started to come alive, we found that we finally got a chance to make some hitters, our strong performers this week. Who'd you decide to go with?
I had to talk about Vinny Pasquantino, which I think might be the second week in a row for him.
Just because he's liquid magma.
He is muy caliente.
Muy caliente.
13 for 26. He had a 500 batting average this week. 1 double, 2 home runs, 7 RBI, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. He's gotten his weighted runs carried plus, and the Godfather David Lesky is like the seer of this. He puts this out there, but it went from like 40 like a month ago to like 111 now or something wild. He's that caliente, that level of caliente. So yeah, great to see him start to produce. Between him and Michael, and we saw Salvi hit a home run with him on base today. There's a little bit more, and Bobby was really good this week, which you're going to talk about here in a second. I just noticed. It's really good to see Vinny doing that because it takes all of them to have an average to slightly above average offense. It would take all of those guys producing.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is what you're seeing from Vinny. He worked clearly. He worked in the offseason to increase his bat speed early on in the year, and that was intentional, and to intentionally pull the ball in the air more. Right? Like he wanted his bat to be quick. He wanted to be out in front, and he wanted to be producing more game power. That was very clear. And from spring training onto the early part of the season, it looked very clear that that's what he was trying to do. What we saw early on was that was interrupting his timing. It was making his timing a little bit tough, right? Early on, as he adjusted to having a little bit of a quicker bat, he kept fouling balls off to his pull side, pulling them so much they weren't staying fair. And everybody was like, whoa, he's trying to pull the ball too much. And now you and I, knowing something about baseball, were like, no, he's not. He should be pulling it. He needs to pull the ball. This is great. Knowing that eventually his timing would work out and he would start pulling the ball and getting those power outcomes. Guess what's happening now? Now he's getting pulling the ball. And that's how your weighted runs created plus goes up drastically, not just because you're getting hits, but because you're producing extra base hits. He's got 2 home runs and a double this week I'm going to just go out on a limb and say neither of those home runs was to the opposite field. Okay. None of them. Okay. He has to pull the ball in the air. He's doing it a lot, and that's helping his production tremendously. This new approach, this new sort of newfound bat speed and new desire to get out in front and pull the ball as much as possible gives him an opportunity to be the type of 3 hitter we all hoped he could be. I'm not talking 107, 108 weighted runs created plus like he was last year. I'm talking 125, 130, 140 weighted runs created plus, which is actually a legit middle of the order hitter.
Yeah, which will come when he gets to an ISO that's roughly 200. Like it may not get all the way there, but if he can have an ISO that is, 185 to 200 and, producing those things, he's fine there. But boy, what we saw in April was not that.
But imagine if he keeps doing what he's done in May.
Yeah. Well, tell us about the other guy that had a massive week here for this offense and is hugely important for this team.
Yes, that guy is one Robert Witt Jr. Maybe you've heard of him. He went 9 for 25 last week with 2 home runs, 6 RBI, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts, had a big home run today. And he did a lot defensively too. Had a huge defensive
that layout
essentially
at short
saved them the win. And he had another huge one in the Cardinal series that saved him a win there too. And so
that was the Cardinal series one I'm talking about. That layout at short.
He did the exact same thing again today in the 9th when it looked like they were going to blow that lead.
Oh yeah. We had to bring Estevez.
So huge defensive plays and offense from Bobby Witt Jr. We're still waiting for that one last step of his, which is like patience and taking more walks and things like that. Though he is he has the highest walk rate of his career this year, which is great. Boy, I love it when he pulls the ball in the air. I mentioned, I think last week or the week before that his air pull rate is as low as it's ever been. And that is what's keeping the power from like blossoming from him. If he just finds a way to keep pulling the ball, he will be fine. Now, part of that is get ahead in counts and look to drive fastballs to your pull side. The guy cannot drive a fastball to his pull side right now because he's virtually never ahead, and he never gets to be like, oh, I can cheat early on a fastball and try and pull 95 to the left field wall. But he can't do that because he's not ahead very often. Contrast that with Michael Garcia, who can do that because he's ahead more often in counts. And
they have like the same number of home runs this year.
Yeah, they do. Bobby Witt Jr., of course, should have way more.
Yeah.
Look at their max exit velocities. I think Garcia's is like 107, 108. Bobby Witt Jr.'s is like 115. And so he clearly has more raw power, but he's just not pulling the ball enough in the air to maximize that. He's still being productive, which is great. Still getting big hits occasionally, which is great. But he's really the engine of this offense. If he and Vinny can stay hot, they got a chance to produce some runs. Mike, there were plenty of players who did not show out this week. Who'd you go ahead and choose as your week performer?
Yeah, we kind of already talked about this, but I went with Cole Reagans. 3 innings pitched in his return, 5 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 home run given up, a hit by pitch, and 3 walks. That means he let on 4 guys for free and struck out 4. So he gave up as many free passes as he did strikeouts. It just wasn't good to see. It wasn't the command. I think first time back in the major leagues, I understand why that's a little bit shaky. The velocity was down too, though. And maybe he never got ramped up to the 97 because he's a guy who will work lower in velocity in the lower innings. He'll start at 95, 96 and build up and throw his last pitch harder than his first quite a bit. But that combined with the command was so bad. So I'm really hoping there's a big step in this next one.
Yeah, we'll see on that one. I mean, it gives me concern. Like, I would have been fine if his command wasn't great, but his velocity was there. But the fact that both were an issue makes me a little worried. And so alleviate those concerns, Cole Reagans. Go out and dominate in this next one. My week performer for the week didn't have what I would consider like an atrocious week, but looked so bad at times I felt like I had to put him in there. And really the fan base is starting to worry to some degree. And even, how they get with sometimes. I'm a little emotional towards this guy. That's Salvador Perez. He went 6 for 27, 1 double, 1 home run, which he hit today, 5 RBIs, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts. Yesterday, he had a woof of a day. I mean, 0 for 4, 4 strikeouts, golden sombreroed Salvador Perez. And it was just bad. It was and he came up in a real
against
big
that
spot.
Starter too. That guy, he's not a bad pitcher, I don't think.
He's not. I mean, they signed him this year off the street.
And his strikeout rate is not high.
No, it's not. No. And yet he got a Perez to chase a 3-2 slider in the dirt that only went 52 feet. I mean, it was not even close to a strike. And, you're seeing the same stuff from Salvador Perez that you always see, which is way too aggressive, swinging at way too many pitches. And then after a very long stretch of that happening, he sometimes figures out, no, wait, that's the problem. And so today he comes out, takes a walk in his first plate appearance. Okay. And then he has a pretty good day today, hits a home run and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, be that hitter all the time and you're going to the Hall of Fame. Like, be the hitter that you typically are, which is swinging everything, and you're going to probably miss the Hall of Fame, right? Like, if he ends up not going to the Hall of Fame, the number one culprit will be his lack of patience. Mike, with all the ups and downs of a crazy, crazy week for the Royals, what theme did you go with?
Oh, I went with just a classic from a guy who looks just like one of our brothers.
Yeah.
Okay. The actor Keanu Reeves.
I've never seen him in the same place at the same time. You can't tell me they're not the same guy.
Me either. If you did not know, one of our brothers resembles old Keanu. Lucky guy. I went with because Keanu Reeves is so good at acting. Okay.
The best.
And I love him. There is a speech he gives in the movie The Replacements, which is not like an all-time great movie, but it's a solid film. Okay. Lifted greatly by he and Gene Hackman. But he gives a speech about what it's like to get into a moment in any sort of athletic competition where it feels like the harder you try, the worse things get. And it reminded me of that 8th inning on Friday night, which set the tone for the whole series. You may just know it as the quicksand monologue. Okay. It's not really a monologue. It's dialogue, but there's a chunk.
It's a monologue.
The chunk that he gets remembered for is kind of a monologue. Okay. So here it is. You're playing and you think everything is going fine. Then one thing goes wrong. And then another and another. You try to fight back, but the harder you fight, the deeper you sink until you can't move. You can't breathe because you're in over your head like quicksand. Now he gives it in a much more smoldering,
goosebumps.
Like
I have goosebumps right now.
Yeah,
not because of you. You're that was beyond mid. But I'm remembering Keanu Reeves
his
doing
performance.
It in the movie.
I'm not exactly channeling Keanu right now, but yeah, it's perfectly thing. You're like, oh man, that was a problem, but they're up 5. It's no big deal, or they're up. It's going to be okay. Boom,
do you mean in the 8th? No. They were tied.
No, they were down. Yeah, they were tied. Sorry, yeah. And then in a blink of an eye, it's done because this mistake leads to this mistake, leads to this mistake. It's like, Jesus Christ, how'd
we forget how to throw and catch a baseball?
Exactly. It was bad. So that was running through my mind as I was watching that game. Even right in the moment, I'm going, oh my God, this is quicksand. Get out of it and let's move on. But I think that did set the tone, and I think, it led to a game too that the 8th inning in that game wasn't very good either, by the way. So yeah, just really bad.
Yeah. Makes sense. And we always love a Keanu Reeves based theme.
Oh, always.
On this show. I'm going with a theme from an album that Mike and I listened to yesterday or the day before that, or whenever we listened to it playing golf. And, it's from a song that actually means a lot to me because it was a song that helped me through a very difficult stretch of my life, and an album that did. But I think about it a lot when I think about like hard times, like when people have like hard times or something's difficult or something's frustrating. I like to sort of shift my perspective and think of the weight that's been given to me, the burden that I have as a gift. And so this song comes from Not a Surf. It's written by the lead singer and songwriter Matthew Cause. It's called Do It Again, off their album The Weight is a Gift. And the line is, I gotta sing it. It's too good to not sing it. I gotta sing it. It's too good. It's too good. It's too good. It's too good.
You're not gonna.
I'm not gonna do it justice, but that's fine.
Okay.
I spend all my energy walking upright, and I like the masked noise quiet of your breathing nearby. When I accelerate, I remember why it's good to be alive.
Free bird.
Like a 25-cent game. Maybe this weight was a gift. Like I had to see what I could lift. That's the song.
Wow.
Not a Surf and Matthew Cause.
Wow. Matthew Cause, I'm sorry, and please don't sue us.
He would never. He's a great man, and he would never. But yes, that line, maybe this weight was a gift, and like I had to see what I could lift. It really resonates for the last week for me because the Royals was very frustrating week in some ways. Like it ended in a very frustrating manner, right? But this feels like a moment of transition for them where they're like learning what they're going to become. With Jac Caglianone, with Nick Lofton, with John Rave, and all this sort of different personnel. Maybe the weight of this last week was a gift, and maybe eventually we'll look at it that way. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Do you have the same fantasy we do, retiring to a land of eternal summer? If so, you need to call Eric Oxer of West USA Realty pronto. He can help you transition to a lovely home in the Phoenix area and a life of fun in the sun.
Picture it, lounging by the pool in my teeny-keeny in February. He's like a small banana hammock.
Teeny keeny,
Teeny
teeny
keeny.
keeny. Eric was one of the top real estate agents in the Phoenix area to end 2024 because he gives all of his clients a personal experience focused entirely on their needs. With Eric Oxer of West USA Realty, it's not about him, it's about you. He's there to listen to you, work for you, and guide you through the ins and outs of buying and selling in the Phoenix area.
We got a chance to hear about some of those ins and outs this weekend. Sounds complicated.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk and words I didn't understand.
There were words I didn't know. Like,
yeah.
Latin,
Find Eric
I don't
Oxer
know.
of West. Yeah. Find Eric Oxer of West USA Realty online at ericoxer.com. That's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just give him a call or shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. If you're at all interested in what a life in the Phoenix area might hold, let him make the experience all about you. With the Royals putting up some frustrating games this week, the fan base has started asking questions about the leadership of the team. It may sound rash, but some are calling for Matt Quatraro to be fired. I now see that pretty much daily on online. Many are calling for Alex Zumwalt to be fired. I also hear that one pretty much daily. And some are starting to question the wisdom of JJ Piccolo. I think that's crazy personally, all that, but we'll get into it. With that in mind, Mike and I are going to devote the spotlight segment to discussing the leadership of the team and some of the decision making of that group. Mike, we'll start at the top. Fans are a little disgruntled with JJ, and it seems like it's an extension of their unhappiness with his inability to sign a bat this offseason. How are you feeling about JJ these days? Does he deserve some of the blame for the team's mediocre play lately, or is this just how things go over the course of a long season?
First, I would like to establish a baseline here. That leadership always deserves blame. That's what being a leader is. You get the credit too, though. So that's good, I guess. So yes, he does deserve blame for anything that this team is as a product. He deserves blame. And the big lacking in this product right now is the offense. So I understand if people want to put that on him for not getting an offensive bat signed in the offseason or traded for or acquired in whatever way. Yeah, you can put that on him. But I still think in the overall balance of have you been a good GM or not, he's done a very great job. I mean, Cole Reagans, the number one starter on this team, was a guy that he went out and got. You know, they brought Bobby Witt Jr. up. He drafted Jac Caglianone, who just made his debut in less than 2 years in minor league baseball.
Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha.
Exactly, those guys like that. On the balance, is he helping? Are these acquisitions, the moves he's made, helping or hurting the team? Just one answer there. You know, so remember where this team was before he took it over. And so I'm still overall very happy. Not that everything's hit. We know the Renfroe deal didn't work. We know that, some of the smaller marginal deals that he's making haven't necessarily panned out for those rotational guys. But has he swung and missed big? Not really.
I think it's also important to remember that he's the guy who put Brian Sweeney in place. He's the guy who changed the pitching development. He's the guy who, changed who's doing the draft with Brian Bridges now and things like that. That's all JJ Piccolo. Oh, and by the way, and Brian Bridges picked Jac Caglianone. Brian Bridges picked David Shields, who looks like he's doing incredible down in low A. It's one of those things where he does deserve a lot of that credit. And on the balance, he has been a tremendous GM. To take a team from 106 losses to the playoffs is hard enough, right? But to then keep them in playoff contention the next year, that's insane, right? A lot of things went right for the Royals last year, from health to the performance to sort of getting a lot out of their free agent investments to some degree and things like that. But then this year, those things aren't necessarily going for them in the same way they did last year. They've been hurt more. They have some underperformance from guys like, Renfroe and Melendez and stuff. That Salvador Perez hasn't been what he's been in the past, but he's still making the right decision. And sometimes the right decision, even this year, has been to stick with guys like Miguel Garcia, for example. It looked early on like he might have more of a rotational role, and JJ was willing to think of him in that way because he hadn't produced offensively in the past. But he also created the conditions for Miguel to perform better this year. And so, I think you have to give some credit there where that's due, because he has kept this team playoff caliber to some degree. I mean, they're in the hunt at the very least, even though he's working with pretty much the same talent pool, or a lot of the same talent pool that he started with, right? And that's really, really impressive.
Yeah, another thing I want to say that's he doesn't, you don't hear people talk as much about, but he said, "Hey, we're going to move Chris Bubich to the starting rotation again after he had success last year." Now people are like, "Well, yeah, that's obvious." It's not that obvious because you had Noah Cameron. Now it's obvious, right? He said, "We're going to give Noah Cameron a shot, and we're going to leave him up here." Like when he's performed, like we interviewed him this winter, he knew he was going to Major League Baseball in the first half of this season.
Oh, yeah.
The Royals had talked to him and said, "You're going to get your first start in Major League Baseball this year. That's going to happen. It'll probably be earlier rather than later." Like he knew that was coming. And so, yeah, with the signing of the signing of Brian Sweeney to change the pitching development and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that helps Noah Cameron get to Major League Baseball too. And so, yeah, overall, JJ, I think, has still done very well.
Yeah, there's another guy who fans are also who have a little more heat for. That is Matt Quatraro. The issue I'm primarily having in terms of the management of the team is more about like I hear every single game about Matt Quatraro and bullpen decisions. Every single goddamn game. Did you see Lesky go off on somebody today?
I did not.
Okay, I'll tell this story because it's hilarious to me. But if you don't know David Lesky, he is a very, very, very nice person, right? Like a very nice person, way calmer and more mild mannered than Mike or I. And I'm probably less calm and mild mannered than Mike is. But he freaking went off on someone today because he keeps hearing about like Matt Quatraro doesn't know what he's doing with the bullpen. He needs to be fired. And he has to hear all this crap all the time. And he just lost it today on somebody. It was great. I loved every second of it. Spicy Lesky is my favorite Lesky. And so, yeah, it was great.
But I don't even know if I've ever seen Spicy Lesky.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, that's the thing. He doesn't come out very often. But I'm actually not as concerned with the bullpen stuff as I am with like, who's playing and how often they're playing. A lot of that is Matt Quatraro's decision to make. Mike, how would you assess the performance that Matt Quatraro has put out this season?
I think the best way for me to describe it is that it's been uneven. He's had uneven stuff. You've liked some of the things that he did. I kind of like the idea of giving guys some different opportunities defensively at the beginning of the year to see where guys fit best. I completely understand that still. Yes, you probably should have figured that out in spring training, but spring training isn't the real thing. But there have been some bullpen decisions that I've questioned as well. But another thing you have to think about is, and I think this is part of that thing I said earlier, leaders get the blame. I mean, this is how it works. If your team makes as many base running mistakes as this team makes, and you're the head coach or you're the manager, that's on you. That is on you. Like, why aren't we doing this correctly? Why are we not playing the situational baseball as well as we did last year? When that was a big part of us scoring runs last year, like where is that? That's your stuff as a manager. And then of course, on top of that, the bullpen stuff has been questionable to me.
Well, so, I think part of that is just the bar. So part of that is the bar is set really high for Quatraro, right? Like he doesn't make that many truly bad bullpen decisions, right? Like, and you can usually trace the reason for a particular bullpen decision, like that Jonathan Bolin decision. We know why he did that. It's not like complicated why he did it. I disagree with it, but I understand it to some degree, right? Like, and he doesn't make huge bullpen blunders all the time. As a result, so there's a certain segment of the fan base that if one of his decisions doesn't work, they're going to blame him even if it was a good decision. Like, and the weird thing about being a manager
can't separate
is like
the process from the outcome.
Exactly. They can't, right? Like, and so, hey, if a pitcher comes in and gives up runs, it was Quatraro's fault and he's bad and he's the worst and fire him, right? Like, and otherwise, I don't think in those terms. If you truly know ball, you don't think in those terms because that's bullshit. Every manager has a guy come in and shit the bed sometimes. It happens, right? Like that's just a thing. Okay. Do I question some of the decisions a little bit more than I did last year? Yeah. I think there are one or two or three over the course of the last month or two where
I say like, this is why I think he's made it's because I've had more of those this year where I'm like, damn it, you didn't leave that guy in long enough, or damn it, you didn't get that guy out early enough is usually what it is. Or why are we going to, like, first off, the base of all this for me is I think Lucas Erschig should be closing games. Estevez has not been terrible or anything like that, but I think this is going to blow up on us at some point. And now he's
It's
hurt.
not.
Yeah.
There are so many things he can't control, right? Like, I think people also don't understand that Cotero is having to make these decisions under very less than ideal circumstances, which is that, like, okay, he's making lineup decisions people hate. Well, guess what? He has to make a lineup with, or at least he has been for the first couple of months, with 6 hitters who are major league quality, and only 3 of them are currently hitting, right? Like, and so it's like, what are you supposed to do there? How are you going to make a fan base happy when you have a grand total of 6 guys who actually belong in the majors as major league caliber hitters, and only 3 of them are currently hitting? That's going to be real tough, right?
I want to ask you a question real quick. What about defensive alignment?
Defensive alignment, there is a
that's gotten me some
criticism.
I've been really pissed about that. Why wouldn't you play Michael Garcia or Jonathan India at second? They had him playing third for so long.
Yeah, that was a mistake, right? And it was a mistake to try, or it wasn't a mistake to try him in left. But once it was clear he wasn't, it was good to move him. But the thing that gets me is there are times when, like, somebody will be DHing who is like a better second baseman than India, but India will be playing second. And I get that you want to rest guys and stuff like that, but what? Why are you doing that? Why is this happening? Or, as you mentioned, India would be playing third and Garcia would be playing second. It's like, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I don't get that at all. Like, and so, yes, there's those things which we could, like, sort of point out, nitpick, and a lot of them have virtually no, I mean, the smallest of marginal value we're talking about here. But I think because last year, so many of his decisions just seemed picture perfect and spot on all the time, that this year, when he's making ones that seem a little bit more out of left field and maybe too cute by half, you would say, we're like, oh, Matt, don't do it, buddy. And so we're now the fan base, half, or at least a segment of them, absolutely irate. If it feels like Alex Zumwalt is the target of the most criticism, he probably is. Obviously, the Royals have not scoring enough runs this year, and anytime that's happening, everybody's going to look to the hitting coach and say, fire his ass, right? Like, some other Royals content creators are calling for a change this offseason in hitting coach. Mike, do you want the Royals to make a change at hitting coach? And if so, why and when?
Well, the answer to when to me, is always as early as possible. I'm not a wait till the offseason guy, especially in Major League Baseball like this, because it's a little bit different in football. You know, you change your offensive coordinator in the middle of the year. They have to run the same system. You can't install a new system in the middle of the year. Major League Baseball is different. You can change a hitting coach right away. So I would probably do that. If the guy's not working and the philosophy's not working, don't keep him there to make it ingrained longer. You know, that doesn't make any sense to me. But what I really want is like a change in hitting philosophy throughout the organization. If that means that Zumwalt has to go to do that, then I'm on board with it. I've always been a person who's like, what wins in Major League Baseball is solid pitching and consistent offense. Doesn't necessarily have to be a great offense. It has to be a consistent offense. The philosophy the Royals have, I think, does not breed consistent offense. And I think that's top to bottom. I think an approach-driven development for hitters, I think, is more consistent. I think breeds better outcomes overall. And that's just not what the Royals do. And I understand why. Maybe it's for the park that they play in, and they had a lot of success with it in 14 and 15 with the aggressive approach and bat to ball and keeping the line moving type stuff. I get all that. But I don't know if that's appropriate for consistently having a successful team.
It's not replicable. It's not a replicable
that's
model.
It's not replicable.
There's a reason there's a reason no other team has done it since then, right? Like, we're 10 years on from the 2015 World Series. Name another team that tried to win that way and did not happen, right? Yeah. Does not happen. Why? Because it cannot be done. Right. And so, you know, it's one of those aberrations that we need to recognize it for what it is. And I agree with you. Like, I think that change in philosophy is important. I think what we're seeing now is a direct result of a player development system and a team philosophy for many years, going all the way back to the Dayton Moore era, that did not prioritize swing decisions. And as a result, you are left with a very inconsistent offense. You are left with many hitters who are not at the peak of their hitting potential because their swing decisions are so bad. Michael Massey, Salvador Perez, name others, Bobby Witt Jr.
Witt Jr.
There are many others, right? Like, and so Drew Waters. They're just the list goes on and on. And so I would love to see. So when you talk to like hitting coaches, and by this I don't just mean like the hitting coaches in Major League Baseball. I mean like people who do private hitting training at like Driveline and things like that. They'll sort of tell you that there are 3 or 4 things that determine a hitter's success, and one of them that they always list is swing decisions. And you know who else had this philosophy? Only the greatest hitter of all time, and Ted Williams.
Yeah.
Whenever somebody asked him what makes a hitter successful, the very first thing he said was, the first thing a hitter has to do is pick a good pitch to hit. Right? Like that is the most important thing. Okay. And so if we're not prioritizing,
and he pulled the shit out of the baseball.
He pulled the shit out of the baseball, and he was the best hitter who ever lived. And so you have to prioritize acquiring players who know how to make good swing decisions, and or having player development who can give guys good swing decisions. It is the foundation of being a good hitter, and they don't treat it as such. They treat it as just like a nice aspect of being a good hitter, but if you can't do it, that's okay. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy, who are happy to announce that they now offer strength and conditioning programs for youth athletes who want to gain an edge on the football field, basketball court, or baseball field.
Finally, I can work to increase my flexibility so I can touch my knees again.
Don't you mean your toes? You want to touch your toes again?
I do not.
No. And of course, All In Physical Therapy still offers the best in recovery from total joint surgeries and sports injuries with offices in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. They'll help you take care of your recently replaced hips, knees, shoulders, elbows, you name it.
I sometimes dream that I'm a robot who can crush steel with my hands. Now that dream can be a reality.
Love it.
Yeah.
If you're interested in reaching the peak of your athletic performance or getting back to 100% from an injury, check out All In Physical Therapy at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com, or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. Old Jackie Cags gets his first look at action inside Kauffman Stadium this homestand this week. They're going to play the New York Yankees, or the Yankees of New York, and the Athletics of TBD this week. And so, Mike,
you got to say the whole list, man.
I forget all of them. The Athletics of
Sacramento, Oakland, Las Vegas, Sacramento, Alameda County, Whisker Biscuits or
Athletics. Mike,
whatever.
You think Jac Caglianone going to get himself some brisket nachos at the K this week?
I hope so.
Mike, tell us about the Bronx Bombers. They're a pretty good team. It's a tough test for the Royals coming home.
Yeah, it is. They are 39-24, first place in the old American League Central.
No, American League East.
American League East, sorry. We're in the Central. American League East, very tough division in baseball. They are good. They've got the best player in baseball and just a solid team. In that first game, it's going to be Noah Cameron versus Max Fried, big free agent acquisition for them. 31-year-old righty out of Harvard Westlake High School.
31-year-old lefty.
Lefty, yeah. He's a lefty. Out of Harvard Westlake High School in California. 1.78 ERA, 9.94 whip. Guy's just so good. Four-seam fastball around 94, sinker, curveball, sweeper, changeup, cutter. He's getting fortunate as his expected ERA is a whopping 3.39. So even that, you got to find something for Max Fried.
You know whose expected ERA is lower than that?
Noah Cameron.
3.20.
Right. Yeah, he's actual ERA might be lower.
Joetown's finest. Oh, it is.
Lower than Fried's.
Yes.
He did give up 2 earned runs in 6 2/3 innings against the Royals in April. So we've seen him. That's helpful. Going to be a tough matchup of lefties there in game 1. Should be fun to watch. Hopefully Kauffman Stadium can contain some of their power hitting. In this game 2 there, it's going to be Chris Bubich versus Clark Schmidt, a 29-year-old righty out of the University of South Carolina, 4.04 ERA and a 1.29 whip. He's a cutter thrower at 92-93, a curveball, sweeper, sinker, slider, four-seam fastball. His breaking pitches grade out really well. The fastballs don't so much, so maybe the Royals can get some of those. 3 earned runs in 5 2/3 innings in April when we faced him in
Interestingly,
New York.
His expected ERA is lower than Max Fried's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Still a good young pitcher. Good young pitcher. Yeah. Good guy. Then Seth Lugo will go against Will Warren in Game 3, the 25-year-old righty out of Southern Louisiana University. Not so great, Will Warren, so far this year. 5.34 ERA and a 1.41 WHIP. He's got a four-seam fastball at 93 to 94, a sweeper, a sinker, a changeup, and a curveball. His expected numbers are better. His expected ERA is 3.77. A lot of walks, a lot of strikeouts. He's got a walk rate just over 10, but a strikeout rate at 28.5%. Wow. With a 93, 94 mile per hour fastball.
Yeah.
Must have some good pitch numbers on that thing, because I imagine it's pretty effective if he's got a strikeout rate that high.
Yeah, usually is.
So what about the athletics of,
various locales?
Tonganoxie, Kansas.
Tonganoxie. I was there for a day once. The Athletics are 26-41, which is last in the AL West. They're having issues. Very injured are the Athletics. They got a ton of dudes down with injury. Offense has been really good this year. 110 weighted runs created plus. That's sixth in Major League Baseball, led by rookie sensation Jacob Wilson, who some fool of a podcasters didn't believe in it.
I did not think he was going to be this good.
Jacob Wilson's got a 166 weighted runs created plus. He's a real heavy swinger, swings a lot, but makes a ton of contact. Great hit tool, one of the best in Major League Baseball. And so he's having a great year. Former Royals legend Brent Rooker is also having another very good year, a 133 weighted runs created plus. Tyler Soderstrom and Lawrence Butler are two of their good young hitters who are also doing well with a 132 weighted runs created plus for both of them. And so a lot of good hitters in this lineup. It's a deep lineup. And so we'll see if the Royals pitching staff can navigate that one. The hitters are much more happy to see Oakland come to town, or Oakland, whoever, Oakland, Vegas, whatever they're called, see them come to town. They have the worst pitching staff in baseball with a 5.77 ERA. That's 30th in Major League Baseball. They're not getting good years from any of their starters. They do not have a starter with an ERA, I think, under 4.5. And so not good. But now two of their starters, Gunnar Hoglund and JT Ginn, are hurt as well. And several of their important relievers are also hurt. And so not great for the Athletics right now. Very injured. Hopefully the Royals lineup can take advantage of this pitching staff, and the Royals pitching can suppress some of their good hitters. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with the Just a Bit Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, what's been going on in your life this week? Let's hear about it. It's so much interesting stuff.
A little bit crazy week this week. My Just a Bit Outside is really more of a question for the fan base, and I hope that yours is as good as mine. And the question is, how deep is your personal bench? And I found out this week that my personal bench is very deep, which I already knew this, but it really came into handy this week, and we'll be doing stuff next week too. And what I mean by this is, who do you have to help support you both in times of trouble and not in trouble? So great example. Monday, my son had to go to the emergency room in an ambulance. We got called.
Crazy.
He had a seizure at school, but thankfully it's not a long-term issue. But from the EMS, the nurses at Children's Mercy, everybody was fantastic. But the thing that really stuck with me is that my personal bench came through. I was able to call my mom and let her know, and she came over to my house to take care of my dog, let you know what was happening, and you got food for my wife and I. Just a lot of people who immediately helped, right? Thankfully, that's all the help that we needed. But then later that week, you helped me for 6 hours put together patio furniture. So a very lower stakes thing, but it helps out so much.
Shift.
Mark put in a shift in my garage building patio furniture. Okay. On Monday, tomorrow, I'm going to do the same thing for you. I'm going to drive you somewhere to help you out. But it's just to know that how awesomely helpful that is. And to have people in your life that you can count on, whether it's high stakes like it was on Monday or low stakes like it will be tomorrow and next week. And the patio furniture thing, those felt like high stakes, but it was kind of low.
When you're in the middle of the trenches putting together patio,
when you're in the salt mine, it feels like
pretty high stakes.
And so just to know that, it's great. And we've had that since birth, with our brothers, they drop of a hat, do whatever you need. My wife has that with a friend group and things like that. Even if you live very far away from your family, I encourage people to cultivate these, because they are very helpful, and I'm so grateful for ours. And so I hope you all have the same thing. out there.
Yes.
And if you don't, I encourage you to cultivate one through work or friends or whatever, some people you can count on.
Yes, it is a great thing, especially for those who have children. Wonderful thing to have. I'm not Mike's. I'm not just Mike's either. I went and helped let somebody's dogs out last night, because they were going to a wedding and stuff. And it's great it's the sense of community that you should be doing. We should
And
all
I feel
lift each
like
other
that
up
kind of went away with COVID a little bit. It
Not
kind
COVID.
of
It's not just COVID, right? It's
not
also
just COVID,
like
the isolation of social media and all
the
those
internet.
things. I get
the internet ruined
the
everything.
internet really ruins everything. But yeah, it's nice to have, and I hope everybody has one.
Yeah. I'm talking about something that I don't necessarily want to talk about, but it is useful, sadly, and it's also gross, and I hate it. So I like to be as nice as I possibly can to everyone all the time, especially to those who are serving me in some capacity. Like, I'm the kindest person you'll meet to a waiter or waitress at a restaurant. I try and be. I try and be really kind to like phone representative people. The problem is our system is set up, and this is inspired because I just saw a study that said men who describe themselves as agreeable, nice, and can get along with other people make 16% less in salary than men who describe themselves as assertive, not nice, and direct. That sort of thing, right? So basically, if you're an asshole, you make more money than if you are not an asshole, right? Like, and this got me thinking, right? Like, and the same is true for women, though the gap is much smaller. It made me think about like how I've developed this thing where I have to like know when to turn me being an asshole on. Like I can turn it on and off. I hate having to do it. I absolutely hate it. Makes me feel bad as a person, right? Like, but there are times where you will get no results because our system is sort of set up to screw you if you are not willing to go the extra mile, right? And so let me give you an example. When our mother was very, very sick many years ago now, there were times when I had to turn asshole me on, to ensure that she got the attention and care that she needed because her situation was dire and also very unique and weird, right? And so like, but I'm willing to do that if it means my mother gets good medical care, right? Like I'm willing to do that for her. I'm willing to do that if I'm getting screwed out of money in significant ways, right? Like I'm willing to turn that on, and it sucks. I'm sure it sucks for the person who has to deal with me, but you're not going to give me what is fair and what is necessary until I turn that asshole on. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of people who probably justify being an asshole all the time with this sort of thing. But I would just encourage people, learn how, when you need to turn it on, and because you can leave it off 99% of the time. But sometimes it's good to be able to be like, all right, I have to play the character of asshole Mark now. And I play that character for 30 minutes, get the result that needs to happen, and then I turn him back off again. Honestly.
Yeah.
Mike, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about too.
Actually, both of my immediate examples were also from my mother. One was in a car dealership where they were trying to screw her out of a warranty fix. I don't know if you remember that. I was 18.
I do remember that.
Yeah, so I got in an argument with the guy there. That almost got physical. And then at a mechanic's office one time, I got in it with a guy who was also trying to screw our mother out of money. And I hate doing it as well. It's one of my least favorite things in the world. Some people say like, oh, you just don't like confrontation. Maybe it's that. It's just also that I wasn't raised to be that way. Like it feels very uncomfortable to act that way for me. Mm-hmm. But when it gets less hard when I feel like it's a real injustice, I guess.
Right. It's the injustice part that gets me. And it's not necessarily confrontation. I have hard and uncomfortable conversations all the time with people. At this point, I've had so many of them, they don't make me uncomfortable, though I can tell they make the other person uncomfortable. And I don't like mind, like I had to throw somebody out of a writing center once that I used to work at because he was behaving inappropriately. That didn't bother me at all. Like, get out of here. I don't care. But I had to turn that on then too, right? It's like you got to turn on this version of yourself that you don't really want to be, but the situation is requiring it, And so just a thought, think about that, but don't use it to be an asshole all the time because I won't like you then. That's all we have for you this week. Please tune in again next week. Make sure you're subscribing to the Royals Weekly Substack. We'll be back with more Royals talk. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.